Yes. You know, when thinking in that last example, yeah, it would have been a half a pound for every pound that the scale says. Yes. So as the consumer, you walk in and instead of it being a pound, it's really a half a pound. And then when you took the apples off their scale, yes, they only gave you half as much as what you had agreed to purchase. Right. But without a receipt, you can't return them. Oh. Now, without receipt of a copy of this order, yes. The signature and the printed name of the petitioner, yes. Um, she really doesn't acknowledge any of it. She can't take it back and say, well, originally, I did acknowledge receipt of the copy of this order, and as the petitioner, right, as the consumer, I acknowledge that the state of Washington and every state, the VAWA, yes, had a contractual obligation to enforce it, but since you didn't require my signature, this whole law of impairing the obligation of contracts known as the penalty of perjury, yes, you, the state of Washington, can't actually sue me. It's true and correct that I did not acknowledge receipt of a copy of this order, and you had an obligation to really not enforce it, as in you had to remove it, yes. But you decided to issue it because you're the state of Washington, and Court Commissioner Basin decided to do it because he thought he was protecting the petitioner and the respondents or the minors named. Yes. What he didn't realize is when she didn't acknowledge receipt of copy of it, yes, the state of Washington is impairing the obligation of contracts known as the purchase and receipt. It's a very basic type of consumerism. Yes, yes, yes. Quite often, if you buy really any item, let's say you purchased a car. Yes, you drove it off the lot, you got your sales receipt and all the additionals, and you drive it home, and the transmission falls out of it. A lot of car dealerships will not take the car back unless you can prove that you purchased it. Let's say you bought yourself, well, a large island in the middle of the Pacific. You paid X number of tens of millions of dollars for it. And they didn't give you any actual ownership of it. You just gave them the $10 million and you said, well, don't worry about the receipt. If I want to return it, I'll get a hold of you. All of a sudden, the seller, yes, says, well, thank you for your money, but without actual proof, yes, that you acknowledged receipt of the purchase, yes. We have no obligation to enforce any contractual obligation. Yes. Now, these laws that impair the obligation of this state and every state of the United States, it's one of these where I said, well, it's a pretty good sized lawsuit this morning. Yes. But when there isn't a state of the United States that could actually sue the petitioner, yes, for anything being true and correct. Let's say she moved to a different state. Anytime in the next, 6, 7 years. Yes, yes, yes. The police show up and arrest me and extradite me to another state. Yes. And they say, well, we have to enforce this. And she says, well, I never acknowledged receipt of a copy of it, but it's not my problem. See, every state of the United States has no contractual legal obligation to enforce the protection order. And when you think about the the full faith and credit of the United States Constitution, yes, Washington State decided to impair the obligation of contract. Oops, now it's $1 billion. As a respondent, when you decided you would not obligate the acknowledgement of the receipt of the order, yes, 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 I decided to sue every state of the United States right now. Oops. Looks like, a state known as Washington State was prohibited from exercising certain powers, and of those powers was law impairing the obligation of contracts. Now it's a multi-billion-dollar day.